to change our windows in order for us to add some colors to it. So right now our windows is essential, so we have to let's make some changes so that you can have a larger workspace and also make it a little bit simplified. Okay, so now drag the properties out and close it with this. Drag the pages out, close it. CC libraries isn't going to be needed because unless you connect to an internet, that's when you need the CC library. So now it isn't going to be needed, so we can close it. Now let's come to Windows and click on color, what you call the controls. Click on the controls so that you see the controls over here. Okay, now here this is what we call the controls. Now come to Windows, bring in the links. Okay. Now there goes the links. And now come to Windows and also enable the layers or check the layers. So you have the layers already here. Now let's go to Windows and also bring in the properties. Yeah, there's the properties. Okay, so you already have it there. Now come to Windows and enable or check stroke. Now come to Windows and check styles, check paragraph styles and character styles. Okay, now do it this way, and yes, do it this way. So let's do that. Now come to Windows, come and add your color, and let's add our color. Now our color swatches, there it goes. Now come to Windows and come to color, and let's add our gradient. Yes, so you add it. Let's do it this way and close it. And now let's come and put it somewhere here. Then need this. Now when you come to Windows and come to color, this Adobe color theme shows us Adobe color theme samples. So samples that we've made can be saved here, and samples that people have made, we can also find it here and we can use it in our project. So what we have to do is you have to enable your internet in order for you to use Adobe color theme. So since we won't use internet in this, you cannot see it. You can see you are not connected to the internet. So always try to sign up for Adobe account and connect to the internet. Now also you can also get some colors from the color or CC library. You can also get some colors from the CC library. So when you have internet, you can save your colors there, save pictures, get stock pictures or stock images, anything that you want, you can get it from the CC library. Okay, so that's one thing. Now let's close the Adobe color theme since we won't use it. So anytime you need colors, you can come there and straight on your internet and you can use it. Now let's bring the pages here. Let's bring the properties over here, and let's bring these things to over here. Okay, now we have a more larger space that we can use to do anything that we want. So we have our strokes here. Okay, so now let's go ahead and save it. So you come to Windows, workspace, and new workspace. So you can save it anyhow you want. Okay, you can save it anyhow you want. And then click on OK so that we can use it anytime. So anytime you want to switch back, just come to Windows, or you can just come here, click here and choose Essentials. Okay, then you can use it. So now make sure you add A4 document and make it landscape. A4 document and make it landscape so that we go ahead with this lesson. So now I've told you about what we call the Adobe color theme, where you get colors to use. Now we have our colors here, gradient and swatches. Now this is our what we call the color. So anytime you come here, you can just come and pick. Let's try and create a rectangle over here. Okay, so now I told you that now when you create a rectangle, maybe depending on your settings, you may see that you can set it from here. Okay, you can set it from here, apply none and those things. So now you can set it from here, but mine is set to automatically. Anytime I draw or the circle or rectangle, the fill is none, but you see there will be a stroke over there. So let me try and do this so that you see that automatically there's a stroke there. So now if I want to swap it, I will just click on Shift X and it will change, and I'll have a fill color and a stroke none. So that's one way. Now in order for us to add a color, what we have to do is we have to make sure to add our swatches. So I think our swatches didn't come, so let's come to Windows, color, and swatches. Okay, now we have our swatches here. So this is our swatches. This is where you see our colors, or our colors that it has been already made. Now this, anytime you open Adobe, these are default colors that Adobe gives to us, so we do not want to tamper with this, and we always want to create our own. Okay, we always want to create our own, and we don't want to tamper with the colors Adobe gives us. One thing that we have to do is with this, come and click on this place. Okay, this panel over here, the tools panel, click here so that it becomes a little bit smaller for us in order for us to use. Okay, so when you click there, then you drag it here so that we have a more larger workspace, much larger workspace for us to use. Okay, so now that's one thing. Now in adding colors, when you come to your swatches, you come here and create new color swatch. Okay, then you can add your colors. So now let's add black. Now you can choose from color mode. There are other color modes that you can choose. We have RGB, and we have different ones. Phantom 2 is a very good color that people used to use. Okay, they used to use. It's a very nice color. You can come here and add your number, and you can just add it. Click on add to add it. So let's try and add some color swatches. So now let's come to here, new color, and let's add CMYK black. Okay, CMYK black. So with the black, the cyan, it will be 90, that's 78 for the magenta. We also have 62, and we also have what you call 97 over here. Let's click on OK. Now let's come here again and add what we call blue, and the blue too, we'll add 65 over here, and we also have 31, and we also have 21, and 5 at black, and click on OK. Now let's go ahead and add a new color swatch. You can click here, add, and then double click over here to make the changes. Let's add what we call pink. So we have 5 with cyan. So we are adding CMYK colors, the CMYK colors 33. The reason why we adding our own colors is that we don't want to tamper with the colors that Adobe gives us. So we always want to use our own colors. Okay, we always want to use our own colors. So let's add pink, then click on OK. Now click here again, double click for us to make the changes, and now let's add what we call orange. So 0, we have 74, we also have 80 and 0. Okay, now let's click on OK. Now let's add another one. So now after adding this, you can create a folder and group it. Okay, so that you can always use from that. Now let's go ahead and add a new color swatch. Let's add what you call light cream. So it's 000 0070 0070. That's for our light cream. So now this light cream is mostly used for the backgrounds. Okay, so that's one way of adding the colors. So you can go ahead and change the names anyhow you want, and you can make changes to it. Okay, and save it or group it over here with new color group. So you select it, control and click, control click, control click, control click. Okay, then what you do is you just group them, and you can name them anyhow you want. Let's say newspaper. And click on OK, so you have them grouped over here. Now we can apply color to things in a very different way. For instance, let me try and explain the CMYK and RGB so that we get a little bit of understanding before we move on. So I can go to the size files and come to color, and let's bring in this CMYK versus RGB. So just pick it and come and drop it over here. Then let's do it this way. Now one thing that we have to notice that with CMYK, it is basically for what we call print. CMYK is basically for print, and since Adobe InDesign is used for printing or for print documents, that's why it uses CMYK. That's why it uses CMYK. Okay, so now with the CMYK, it's good for printing, and with RGB is good for screen. The RGB is good for screen. Okay, so now certain things that uses RGB, we can send them to somebody because we want to let them to know that view it on the screen. But when we are using it for printing, then we should use the what we call the CMYK. So CMYK is basically for print, and for screens is RGB. Now the RGB is a little bit brighter, and you can see that the CMYK is a little bit dim. You can see a dark end with it. So with AI files we use CMYK, and PDF to is CMYK, and JPEG to is what we call RGB, and PNG RGB, PSD RGB. So in any images that we bring into Adobe InDesign, it changes it to what we call CMYK for us. Okay, changes it to CMYK, and we can also change any image to CMYK ourselves using Photoshop. Then we can change it to CMYK. Now let's bring in a new image, and what are we talking about? CMYK and RGB. Now go into your size files and bring in this RGB file, and let's come and put it here. Now drop it over here. Now what are we talking about when you talk about RGB and CMYK? Now, as I was talking about, I told you that with what we call the CMYK, it is a little bit darker, but with the RGB it's a little bit bright. So anytime you want to switch between CMYK and RGB in Adobe InDesign, make sure you come to edit, and come to transparency blend. Now it has been set to RGB. Okay, so automatically yours will be at document CMYK. And you can see that this is what we see over here. So any work that we do will be in like a darker color like this, which is CMYK. So anytime you want to change it for print or for what you call screen, to send somebody, for a person to view on phone or laptop, computer, anything, you can come to edit and change it to RGB, and you can see that RGB is a little bit brighter, and you can send it to the person. But when you are printing, you should stick to what we call the CMYK, so that we can print it and it will look nicer. And some printers too make adjustments to our images, and it depends on, there are certain settings that we do in Adobe InDesign that can help us to improve our settings for print. So we will come to that one later and we will deal with it. So that's one thing. So CMYK is the colors that Adobe InDesign uses in our design, so we should take note of that. So anytime that we want to add any color, you just come to color swatches, and we can, maybe you want to pick a color from this, you can come to the dropper tool, and you can see that it has picked the color for us. So in the first thing, when you pick the dropper to look at, it looks this way. It is facing like bending to your right, but when you pick a color, you can see that it bends to your left. It means that it has a color, it has a feel right now. Okay, so you should also take note of that. So anytime you want to undo the fill, just come and click on it again, and there will be no fill. Okay, you see that it has now bent to the right again. Now we can add colors to our images, but before we can add colors to our images, unless we change the image to grayscale, if not, we cannot add color to our images. Okay, so let's look at the example. Now go to exercise file and bring in this image, and let's place the image. Okay, now we have placed the image. Let's try and see if we can add color to it. Now we can add color to the frame, but the color won't affect the image itself. So let's see, let's try and add this red color to it. Now you see that there's a red fill, but it, instead of adding to the image itself, it has added to the frame of the image. Okay, so now you can double click it for it to get to the direct selection, and let's do this. So you can see that the image or the fill, instead of it filling the image here, it has filled the background. Okay, meaning it couldn't be applied, it didn't apply. So what can we do in order for us to fill color on an image? So we can use Photoshop. So you can come to Photoshop and bring in the image, and make sure you turn the image into grayscale in order for you to be able to add colors to your image. If you change to black and white, it won't apply unless you change the image to grayscale before the color will be applied. Okay, so inDesign is anytime you want to add some compositions, you have to come into Photoshop and add the composition, and come to inDesign and finish the setup with inDesign, because inDesign is a layout thing that helps us in printing or a print thing. So we have to do all the composition, like editing our images, cutting our images in Adobe Photoshop, and then we will do what? We will send it back to inDesign and make the layouts for our documents and magazines, newspapers, and other things. So we will go to how to work with images. So now, in order for us to add color to our images, as I said, we have to change it to what we call grayscale. So now let's come to image, select your image, come to image adjustment, and okay, come to mode and change it to grayscale, and click on OK, and click on discard. Okay, now with this, let's save it. File. Now, so let's try to bring the image back into Adobe inDesign. Okay, so we want to try and bring the image back to Adobe inDesign so that you can try and add the colors to it. Okay, so that you can try and add the colors to it. So now let's save it. And then send it back to inDesign and add the colors to it. Okay, now we have it here. So let's see. Let me try and add it into the exercise files so that we can so let's change it to TIF. Okay, now there we have. Okay, so TIF compresses it for us. Okay, compresses it for us, so the image size will be very small instead of saving it as a JPEG or PNG. Okay, so if you want to use it in inDesign, you should mostly save it as a TIF in order for it to lower what we call the scale of or the size of it for us. Okay, so now let's bring it in our image. Let's come back to our size files and drag this and bring it into inDesign. Now let's create a frame for it. Now, so let's see if you can add color to it. Now, so with the image selected, let's just come to this, and now you can see the color has been applied. Okay, Now you can see that the color has been applied. Now if the color has been applied, let's lower the tint. Now tint is something that is different from opacity. Okay, this is opacity. You can lower opacity, but to lower the opacity of the image. Okay, but when we want to lower the opacity, tint is very different from opacity. Okay, tint is like it adds more white to the color, so it adds more white to the color, thereby reducing the brightness of the color. Okay, the lightness of the color, so add more light to the color. Okay, so that's one thing. So we should reduce we can reduce the tint in order for the image to blend very well. Okay, for it to blend very well. So that's one way. So we will go to another way of adding it colors to our images. You will go to another way. So now you can see that your image looks a little bit like you can't see it very well. It's not clear for you. So one thing is that if you're having a higher GPU, you can come to view and make sure you come to what we call performance display and set yours to high quality. Okay, so you see that now the quality of the image has done what? Has changed. Okay, it has changed. Let's look at it once again. Now first it was set to, if you know that you have a slower computer, then let it always be on screen mode, should be on what we call display performance, should be on typical display. Okay, but when you print it out, the images will come clear and nice. Okay, but if you have a higher GPU, you know that the computer runs fast, then you can always do your work at view display performance. You can do it at high quality display. Okay, so I'll keep mine at what we call display performance typical display. Okay, now I know that you can see the difference. So that's how to work with colors in inDesign. So thank you for joining us in this lesson once again, and hope you learned more, and good things is surely about to come. As we go further, then we'll be creating new documents and magazines and other things. So thank you for joining this lesson, and let's go to the next lesson. So anything that we didn't add, we'll make sure to add it in other lessons, so that by the time the ultimate inDesign beginner to advanced course is done, you will be able to learn something and add it into your print businesses. Thank you for joining us. Now, one thing that we should take note is, for instance, when we want to bring a logo into our inDesign workspace, now the thing is, you can only change the logo, the design, or the color of the logo if you are using Adobe Illustrator for the print or the to design the logo. You can either change the color in Adobe, what we call inDesign, to suit what you are bringing into inDesign. Okay, so maybe you want to change it to red in order for you to correspond or blend with your design. You have to change it in Illustrator. If not, for instance, the way we did this thing and brought the image into Adobe inDesign, you also have to open inDesign or open Adobe Illustrator if you want to change the color of your logo. Okay, so if you have any logo, you have to design it in Illustrator, or even you can open it in Illustrator. And when you want to change the color in Adobe inDesign, you just go into Adobe Illustrator. You go into Adobe Illustrator and open the image or the logo in Adobe Illustrator, and what you do is come to edit and copy the image. So copy the image whilst the software Adobe Illustrator is opened. So as it is opened, you copy it, and what you do is you just come and change the color. So if the Illustrator is not opened, and if you don't copy it from the Illustrator, what happens is that you cannot change the color of your logo unless you change it before in Illustrator, then or any other software, Photoshop, then you bring it in. If not, you have to open Illustrator, copy it and bring it into Adobe InDesign, and you can now add color to your logo.